Good morning, folks. This is BBD on this Monday morning, the 24th. Today I'm going to try and set the stage to answer a perplexing question that has been posed on one of our chats. It says, can you elaborate in your next session on the possible issues holding back the government in refuting statements of adversaries, giving the Vietnamese a pass, etc., is what I had mentioned the last time. Very difficult poser. I guess I can only have a gut feel, and I've got some historical kind of narrative. But since I'm not a historian and neither a person of sociology or DNA, I am not sure why this happens. But here's what I'm going to ask you, right? And I've written this down. He says, I've written, in our history, all we read about it, we were attacked. The Mughals, Alexander, Ghazni, Nadir Shah, and it's an endless list. The British, then Pakistan in 47, 65, 71, and Kargil. And they continue the asymmetrical warfare as we talk. Then there was China in 62. Attacked, and attacked. We seem to have a very convenient escape clause of what we are, that we are a very peace-loving nation with no expansionist urge. Hardly the truth, as the internal violence suggests. So why the hesitance with the external enemies? I worry that our foreign policy, since independence seems to be shackled with Gandhi's teachings, slap one cheek then offer the other. Defense is not the best defense. Sometimes offense is. China has attacked us, and I do not know why we keep suppressing information on ground realities and obfuscate facts. Maharaja Ranjit Singh and Shivaji were successful campaigners because they attacked and did not sit back to defend. Let's learn from that. We seem, for some odd reason, as an answer, we seem to have developed defensive as a badge of honor. How many times have you guys heard, we have never attacked anyone? We are a violent nation, folks. Took birth in a violent situation. We have communal violence, we have caste violence, we are violent against each other, we have road rage on Delhi roads. So I'm not sure why. Well, actually, I know why, because we've kind of suddenly got into this deference stage with as far as China is concerned, and we seem to take on everybody else in the world except them. But here, let's just go and talk about some of the items that we are now dealing with and how things are shaping up. But to answer your question, the reason I think this happened is that we are just living with this old Gandhi phenomena of slap one side and slap the other, and I think we got to shed this thing sooner than later. I mean, there's deference, and I think this is a ghost of 1962 that doesn't allow us to get up and take the bull by the horns as far as China is concerned. But I think it's time we grew up, and the only way we are going to grow up is to hammer them back, and there is no really other way, right? So let us start with our deference, right? So we have a statement. It says, technicality not China link led to scrapping of VB tender railways. Well, we know it was the China link. Why is the railways of all those people backing away from that? Hey, God damn it, say it's it's China that broke it up. Why are we still afraid about that? For me, sometimes I think there is some compromise, commercial compromise in our Lutyens Delhi circle that forces this kind of equation, and it has to stop, and it must be investigated. Finally, thank God, we had India rejects reference to J&K in China-Pak joint statement. About time. Why wait 2 days to do that? It should have been far more aggressive, done right after the statement made by these two foreign minister Tweedledum and Tweedledee. It's about time we stopped believing Wang Yi, ladies and gentlemen, and Jaishankar has to do it ASAP. Then there is an article that obviously written by the HT correspondent. Security meet focuses on LSE situation. So basically what that did was it dismissed assertion in a readout from Chinese foreign ministry that the two sides had positively evaluated the progress in the disengagement process. So this is, you can see what China is doing. China is trying to give a positive spin to change the public opinion, while there is nothing further from the truth on the ground. Then there is growing consensus among Indian officials and China experts that military talks are unlikely to deliver further results, and the resolutions of the issue will require political and diplomatic nada. There is going to be no go with political or diplomatic intervention. This is again climbing up a slippery slope, and you're going to slide down faster than we climb up. You know that. Forget about diplomatic and other intervention. Economic and diplomatic. And diplomatic, not talking to each other, diplomatic barrage of naming and shaming them on every platform, building up a coalition of the democracies against this ogre of China and Pakistan. It is time we did it, and we did it now. But finally, you're beginning to see some turn of events, right? And this is the other thing that, got my goat up a little bit. He says China refuses to budge, builds infrastructure along LAC. China is showing no intent of disengaging from the troop confrontation in eastern Ladakh, while further digging in its heels by continuing to build roads, bridges, helipads and other military infrastructure along the line of actual control to back its troop at the actual face of sights. We have already waited too long. Talking more is not going to help, folks. Get up, let's tell this government that. Talking is not going to help us. Then it says, the strategy being finalized for any contingency as well as long haul. And this is where I find our defensive nature. And when you add this to it, there is always the possibility of collusive threat from them. And said another officer, China seems hell-bent on its strategy to push the LAC westwards. Well, here's the deal, man. You know they're pushing westwards. There is no point in defending. Defending costs too much money. The only defense in this particular case is offense. I am not even sure why the army is not thinking along those lines. And let me just read out something that Swato Gonglo, very sensible guy, writes in the Times of India. He says, while America presided benignly over China's rise, India was the loser from the dramatic Nixon-Mao rapprochement of 1972, facilitated by Islamabad. So that's why there is that's why there's a soft corner, was always a soft corner for Islamabad in DC, which is now conclusively broken. He says that changed with the US-India nuclear deal of 2005, piloted by President George Bush and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Important. Anybody who thinks that the nuclear deal was irrelevant, Manmohan Singh was irrelevant, let me put it this way, that deal put us finally on the high table. Without that, we would have been an outlier that would have never made it to any global consciousness. So where he says, in the view of some heightened geopolitics tension between the US and China, people think that they are a temporary phase. But he says, however, as I've argued at greater lengths earlier, there is a fundamental problem when a mercantilist power like China is admitted into a global order premised on open markets and free trade, setting up an anomaly that grows ever larger and becomes unsustainable. And that is important. It's unsustainable now. Then he says, the China-India relationship too is defined by a fundamental anomaly or disequilibrium. While Beijing used the rules-based liberal international order to rapidly climb up the global ladder, it has also held a starkly realist view of international relations as a zero-sum game, where lesser powers owe deference to more powerful states, and India's rise is to its detriment. Okay. Now it gets better as he puts it. To be sure, New Delhi already makes many concessions to Chinese expectations without reciprocity. For example, China backs Pakistan whenever the latter raises Kashmir at the UN and provides diplomatic cover for Pakistan's practitioners of asymmetric warfare, seeking to attack India in Kashmir and elsewhere. But New Delhi never raises issues such as China's suppression of human rights in Xinjiang or Tibet, occurring on a far greater scale than in Kashmir and in the absence of any armed insurgency, or its violation of the core one country, two system agreement with Hong Kong. New Delhi might have met China's move in Pakistan by undertaking matching moves with Taiwan. It defies imagination why it has not done it so far. Then he says, Beijing expects more overwhelming deference. Joining forces, the China-Pakistan axis could essentially do to India what the West did to the Soviet Union. To break out of this encirclement, New Delhi's only viable option is to join and indeed play a role of organizing the global pushback against Chinese belligerence led by the West, which will be a feature of the post-COVID world. And while we're doing this, we got to make sure that we don't create a Sino-Islamic bloc, right? And to ensure that, you really need to have peace within the country. We've got to shutter down this anti-minority rhetoric, because Bangladesh is hurt by that. Then you really need to bring a coalition together, which includes Saudi Arabia, includes the United Arab Emirates, includes the Central Asian nations, includes Indonesia. You're not going to be able to do that if you continue to pursue a deliberating domestic policy agenda of minority bashing, and that is very important. And when Gautam Bambalwale, an ambassador to Pakistan, High Commissioner to Pakistan as last posting, says what he says, you know, finally there's some people in the MEA that are beginning to think the way they should have done many years ago. He says China wants diplomatic normalcy while being militarily aggressive for India. This is entirely unacceptable. It is now obvious that moves by the People Liberation Army in eastern Ladakh this summer were premeditated, planned, and smoothly executed. From the statements of Chinese diplomats in voice, as well as other interlocutors with whom this writer has had the opportunity to interact virtually, China's diplomatic game plan has also become apparent. Having accomplished much that it has planned militarily on the ground, China intends to make these positions permanent and amass the gains. Simultaneously, it will do all it can to ensure that the rest of the India-China relationship continues its normal course, and that it is business as usual in economic relations, in people-to-people exchanges, and the multilateral engagement. And that should not be allowed. Then it says, if China accomplishes this diplomatic objective vis-a-vis India, it will be able to show the world that India has accepted the new military realities on the ground in Ladakh. By extension, other countries should not worry about the implications of China's moves on its borders with India and about aggressive Chinese behavior. It will also cement China's preeminent position in the Asian pecking order. A further implication for India, if it were to quietly acquiesce to this Chinese game plan, is that there will be nothing to stop PLA from repeating its action later this year or next year or the next. What is important to note, it is just not subjugation to China we are talking to. Once we do this, we acquiesce to China. Let's guess what, folks, we will be second fiddle to Pakistan too. And that is what should be a wake-up call for this particular administration, especially the NSA, the Prime Minister, and the people making all the decisions. It is just not subjugation to China we are talking about at this time. Well, China is so that's where it stands. But luckily today we are having some repercussion. India rejects China's equidistant disengagement plan for Finger area. Then it says military options on table if talks fail. Rawat on China. It says LAC military plan ready. CDS Rawat. So basically, this is the statement we should have actually made earlier, that we are ready for war. I'm glad it's been done today. It's been reported prominently in the Hindustan Times, which shows that it has some gravitas and not the floozy kind of reporting that comes out of Times of India, which tries to balance all kinds of things. But important, folks, this is what should have happened. LAC military plan ready and ready and ready. And this time, folks, we cannot take the same attitude as we've done for all the invasions in our historical past. This time, we will have to take the bull by the horns and be the offender, because we've already been invaded. We don't have to wait for an invitation now. Let's do it before China plays the next hand, which is probably going to be get Pakistan to do its dirty work. Jai Hind.